She thought she'd broken me. She had no idea I was watching waiting planning. I learned early that silence could be armor. When other kids ran home to hugs and snacks after school, I learned to walk slowly, to listen for the sound of my mother's mood behind the front door. Some days it was quiet and I could breathe. Other days it was thunder. My parents split when I was 6, and from that moment on, every storm in our house had the same explanation: your father's fault. If the fridge was empty, if the lights flickered, if she woke up angry, it was always him. I used to believe it. I used to cry for a man I thought had ruined us. But children grow and lies rot from the inside out. By 8 years old, I'd stopped asking for breakfast. My sister and I cleaned, cooked, and did our homework without being told. We thought we were being helpful. In truth, we were trained caretakers, tiny soldiers keeping peace for a queen who thrived on pity. I still remember the slap that first taught me what worthless meant. It wasn't the pain that stayed. It was the way she smiled afterward, satisfied, like she'd proven something. As the years passed, her stories about my dad became grander. He doesn't care about you, she'd say. He'd rather send money than show up. But when that money arrived, she'd wave the check in the air, calling it Mommy's paycheck. She'd laugh while I stared at the number that could have bought food or school clothes. When I was 16, Grandma died, the last person who ever stood up to my mother. She left $75,000. My mother quit her job the same week. By summer's end, the money was gone. A new wardrobe, endless nights out, bottles stacked by the trash. She called it healing. I called it freedom, for her, not for us. My senior year became a blur of work and exhaustion. School by day, job by night, dishes at dawn. Every shut-off notice landed on my lap. You have a job, she'd sneer. Why can't you pay it? When I dared mention child support, she'd shrug. Tuition for your sister, she'd lie. My sister and I whispered about it once, both of us realizing the truth. There was no tuition fund. There was only Mom. I started counting days like a prisoner. How many until I could leave for college? How many until I didn't have to beg for permission to eat? Then college acceptance letters arrived. My mother looked at them like overdue bills. Too expensive, she said. You'll have to pick the cheap one. I chose the state university, the one with grants and a dorm far away. For the first time, I felt a spark of air in my lungs. But she wasn't done with me. My freshman year should have been the start of something better. Instead, it became another test of endurance. I paid my tuition with grants and part-time work. My mom didn't send a dime, but she still found ways to sabotage me. My W-2 forms were mailed home that winter. I didn't think twice about it until my sister called, whispering through the phone. She shredded them. First I laughed. It sounded too ridiculous, too cruel even for her. But when I came home for spring break, the truth was sitting in the kitchen trash can, buried under coffee grounds. Why? I asked her. She smiled. I thought you didn't need them. Her friend, a CPA, helped me recover duplicates and file my taxes. The friend's pity burned worse than any insult. She knew. Everyone knew. My mother's mask was slipping. The second year it happened again. Same W-2s, same trash. This time I didn't yell. I just looked at her, calm and cold. You really don't want me to leave, do you? Her eyes flickered just for a second. Then she smirked. You always blame me for everything. No, I thought. You taught me how blame works. That year I filed late, lost part of my financial aid, and nearly lost my mind. Every night I stared at my ceiling in the dorm, wondering if I was cursed to repeat her mistakes, to become bitter, to rot in resentment, to take from others instead of giving. But that summer, something in me hardened. I came home to work full-time, saving every cent for next semester. She was unemployed again, drinking, laughing in chat rooms while the power bills piled. When I refused to pay her phone bill, she called me ungrateful. You eat my food, sleep in my house, and act like you're better than me. I am trying to be better than you, I said quietly. She slapped me across the face, and for the first time in my life I didn't flinch. I just looked at her, really looked, and saw what she was: small, terrified, addicted to misery. The silence that followed was the sound of something breaking inside both of us. I stopped talking to her after that. We coexisted through gritted teeth until move-in day for my junior year. That's when everything came crashing down. I arrived at the dorm ready to start fresh. But when I went to pay the semester bill, the clerk frowned. You can't move in without the 50% deposit. 10,000. My blood ran cold. The school had told me I was clear. Somewhere paperwork had gone wrong. Somewhere I was about to lose everything. I called my mother first. She didn't answer. When I finally reached her, she sighed like I'd interrupted a nap. You should have planned better. Maybe if you didn't waste your money. Click. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Then I called my dad. He picked up on the first ring. I barely got the words out before he said, "Stay there. I'm coming." 2 hours later he showed up. Coffee in one hand, donut in the other. He didn't lecture me. He just said, "Let's fix this." We spent the day running from office to office. He co-signed a loan, covered the rest himself. When it was done, he took me to lunch. I hadn't realized how hungry I was until that first bite of sandwich. That's when he told me everything. 4 years, he'd been paying the mortgage and child support, $2,000 a month, long after my sister had graduated, long after I'd moved to campus. He thought the money was helping us. It wasn't. She told me she was paying your tuition, he said. She never did. The words hit like a thunderclap. All those nights I'd gone hungry, all those times I'd felt guilty for asking for books or shoes, and she'd been living off my future. My dad looked at me then, serious. How would you feel if I stopped sending her child support and just handled your tuition directly? I felt something fierce bloom in my chest. Do it, I said. Please. He nodded. Then let's make this right. When I called my mom to tell her, she didn't even pretend to care. That's your problem, she said. You should have planned better. I almost laughed. Planned better? I've been planning my escape since kindergarten. A month later she called again, screaming this time. What did you tell your father? He's taking me to court. My heart raced, but I kept my voice calm. I just told him the truth. She cursed me out, called me selfish, accused me of betrayal. I let her vent until she ran out of breath. Then I said, "You always told me to complain to my father." I finally did. Click. That was the sound of the tables turning. The court hearing came fast. My dad presented proof. Tuition bills, receipts, records. The judge saw everything, how she'd lied, how she'd hoarded support meant for us, how she hadn't worked in years. By the end of it, my dad was cleared to pay my tuition directly. The mortgage payments stopped. The child support stopped. The free ride ended. When the ruling came through, my mom called me sobbing. You ruined me, she cried. I can't pay the bills. I'll lose the house. You always said the house was yours, I said softly. Now you'll finally have to take care of it. She screamed something incoherent, and I ended the call. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Winter came. She tried one last trick, claiming the utilities were shut off so I'd send her money. When I said I'd stay with Dad instead, she suddenly found enough cash to turn everything back on. By spring, the house was sold. She moved in with her boyfriend, then to another state. She called it starting over. I called it consequence. I'd like to say that was the end of it, but people like her don't vanish, they echo. Sometimes her number flashes on my phone and I let it ring. Sometimes I answer and she acts like nothing happened. But every conversation reminds me I survived her. And she'll never feed on my guilt again. Years later, when I walked across the stage to receive my degree, I looked out at the crowd. My father was there beaming. My sister too, tears in her eyes. My mother's seat was empty. For once, the emptiness didn't hurt. It healed. That day I realized revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's just the quiet satisfaction of living well, while the person who tried to break you watches their control crumble. But deep down I knew this wasn't over. She would call again, she would guilt again. She would test the boundaries of the new life I'd built. And when she did, I'd be ready. I thought the court order would end everything. It didn't. It only changed the shape of her power. At first, the silence felt unreal. No late-night calls. No guilt-soaked messages. For a while, I convinced myself she'd finally moved on. Then one morning in February, an email appeared in my inbox. Subject line: Please help me. I almost deleted it. But curiosity won. Inside was a single line. Your sister won't speak to me. I have nowhere to go. There was no greeting, no apology, just that one line, short, sharp, and loaded with expectation. I stared at it for a long time before closing my laptop. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. She wanted me to chase her. I didn't. Weeks passed. I focused on my final semester, my internship, my own tiny apartment that smelled like coffee and new beginnings. I hung photos on the wall, small victories that meant more than she'd ever understand. But she always found a way to seep back in. One afternoon my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. "Hey," a man's voice said. "This is Derek. Your mom's boyfriend. She asked me to call you." I froze. What does she want? She said you might help her with her resume. She's trying to get a job. My laugh came out colder than I meant. Tell her she should start by learning honesty. That's the first qualification she's missing. Click. End call. I expected rage after that. Maybe a long message full of insults, but instead she went quiet again. It was almost worse. Quiet meant plotting. Quiet meant she was rebuilding some version of control. Graduation came with a strange calm. Dad clapped me on the back. My sister hugged me like she hadn't in years. The crowd's noise blurred into a steady hum, and I realized something. My story had split. One half of me still carried her voice, her guilt, her chaos. The other half had finally stepped into the light. That night, I promised myself something simple. I will never let her rewrite me again. Then the rewrite began. It started with mutual friends, old neighbors, distant cousins messaging me online. "Hey, your mom posted about you. She said you've been helping her out. That's amazing." I blinked. Helping her? I searched her profile. There it was. Pictures of her new apartment, captions about her wonderful son who saved her life, stories about how family always forgives. Forgives? I hadn't even spoken to her in 6 months. I scrolled further and my stomach twisted. She'd posted screenshots of my graduation photos, the ones I'd shared publicly, and written, "So proud of my boy. We did it together. We did it together." The audacity almost made me laugh. Almost. That night I didn't sleep. Every post felt like a small theft. Not of money this time, but of narrative. She was stealing my story, polishing it, wearing it like proof of redemption. So I decided to take it back. The first step was quiet. I started documenting. Screenshots, dates, old messages. Every contradiction she'd ever written. I wasn't planning revenge yet. I was collecting truth. Then I wrote an article for the student magazine, anonymous at first, about growing up under manipulation, about the power of reclaiming your story. I didn't name her. I didn't have to. The honesty in my words hit harder than any accusation. The article went viral on campus. Professors shared it. Students wrote to me about their own toxic families. And then one morning a message arrived from her. "Nice article. Everyone knows it's about me. Congratulations on humiliating your mother." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, then typed back 2 words. "Not yet." The opportunity came months later. A local radio station invited me to speak about resilience after family trauma. It wasn't fame I wanted, it was finality. A chance to tell my truth out loud under my own name. When the mic light turned red, I took a breath and began. I grew up in a house where guilt was currency, where love came with invoices, where silence was survival. As I spoke, I felt years of weight peel away. I didn't attack her. I just told the story straight. The missing money, the lies, the slow starvation of self-worth. By the time I finished, the host was speechless. The studio quieted like it had exhaled something toxic. 2 days later, the episode hit 1 million streams. She called me that night. "Do you enjoy ruining people's lives?" she hissed. I stayed calm. "No. I enjoy telling the truth. You ruined yourself." Her breath caught. Then the line went dead. Weeks later I learned she'd moved again. New city, new story, same script. But this time people already knew. Someone had shared the interview with her new landlord, her new coworkers. Not out of spite, out of curiosity. And just like that, her mask slipped again. Her lies stopped working because I had finally learned to live without them. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her love. I just needed her silence. And slowly, beautifully, I got it. Now, when people ask about my family, I tell them the truth in one line. My mother taught me everything I needed to know about freedom, by taking all of mine first. Then I smile, not out of bitterness but peace. Because the greatest revenge is not destruction. It's detachment. The day I stopped needing her approval was the day she lost every weapon she ever had. And that finally was the sound of freedom. Hi, Mom. The word leaves my mouth before I can stop it. 2 syllables that used to feel heavy with hope. Now light. Almost empty. She's standing in the doorway, same house, same faint smell of lavender cleaner and stale coffee. For a heartbeat she just stares, trying to read me. I let the silence stretch. I've learned the power of quiet. Oh, she finally says, voice too high, too surprised. So you really came. I said I would. My tone is flat, measured. Inside, the air feels old. The clock on the wall still ticks like it's counting down to something. I step past her, slow, deliberate. My shoes echo on the wood. Every sound feels louder in the stillness. The living room hasn't changed. Same beige couch, same framed photos that tell a version of our life that never existed. On the mantel, my graduation picture still leans crooked. Glass cracked through the middle of my smile. I don't touch it. She closes the door behind me. You look different, she says like she's tasting the word. I am. Her mouth twitches. Well, don't just stand there. Sit down. The command comes out on instinct, like she can still order me into submission. But I don't move. I glance around, taking it all in, the house that raised me and broke me in the same breath. I'll stand, I say softly. She gives a small, brittle laugh. Still stubborn. I let that pass. I've learned that not answering can be louder than any argument. Her eyes narrow. So what brings you back? Need something? Money? Advice? No, I say. Not this time. The surprise flickers across her face, quick and sharp. She was ready for a transaction, not a conversation. Then why? I wanted to see what was left, I answer. Of the house. Of you. Of me. For a second she looks almost fragile, shoulders folding inward. Then the old mask slides back into place. Still dramatic, she says. You always did like to make everything about feelings. I almost smile. You taught me that. We stand there, a small war fought in silence. She gestures toward the kitchen. I made coffee. I follow her, each step a memory. The linoleum still creaks in the same spots. The fridge hums like it's trying too hard. On the counter, 2 mugs, hers and mine mismatched like always. She pours without asking how I take it. She never did. The coffee's burnt. I drink it anyway. So, she says, sitting down. Tell me about your life. Still blaming me for everything. I set the mug down carefully. I stopped blaming you a long time ago. Her eyes lift, suspicious. Oh, blame kept me connected, I say. I needed to let it go. She laughs, short and sharp. Well, aren't you enlightened? I try. Something in my calm unsettles her. I can see it in the way she fiddles with her spoon, stirring nothing. She used to feed on my reactions, the tears, the apologies. Now there's nothing to take. The power drains from her expression like color from an old photograph. So what do you want from me? She says finally. An apology? I shake my head. You don't have to apologize. Good, she says, relieved, defensive. Because I did my best. I know. The words land softly, but they sting her more than anger ever could. She leans back, searching my face for judgment and finding only distance. You think you're better than me now, she says. No, I answer. Just different. The clock ticks between us, steady, merciless. Outside, a car passes, tires whispering on wet asphalt. For the first time, the house feels smaller than I remember, like it's been shrinking with every lie she told. She looks away. You sound like your father. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Her jaw tightens. He ruined everything. Maybe, I say. Or maybe he just stopped letting you ruin him. Her hand freezes halfway to the mug. I meet her eyes, steady, calm, cold. Not cruel. Just done. I didn't come to fight, I say. I just wanted to see you as you are, not as I remembered. And what do you see? She whispers. I take a breath. Someone still trying to win a war that ended years ago. The spoon slips from her fingers and clinks against the mug. She looks smaller suddenly, like the air's gone out of her. You always had to have the last word, she murmurs. No, I say. I just finally have a voice. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. The silence is heavy but not unbearable. It's the sound of a chapter closing. I should go, I say, standing. I have a train to catch. So soon? She asks, her tone almost soft. I stayed long enough. She follows me to the door. You'll call. I'll try, I say, and we both know what that means. Her hand hovers like she might reach for me, but she doesn't. I open the door, step into the fading daylight. The air outside is cool, clean. I feel it fill my lungs, and for the first time it doesn't burn. Behind me she says quietly, "You think you're free now, don't you?" I turn just enough to meet her eyes. "No," I tell her. "I know I am." I walk away before she can answer. The wind carries the smell of rain. The street hums with life, and the door clicks shut behind me. Each step feels lighter than the last. The past doesn't disappear. It just loses its grip. At the end of the block, I glance back once. The house is smaller from here, ordinary. For years it was a fortress in a cage. Now it's just wood, paint, and memories. Nothing that can hold me anymore. I keep walking. The train door slides open with a sigh, and I step inside. A faint metallic smell, the low hum of movement, the rhythm of something leaving something else behind. I sit by the window. The seat is cold, but it feels right. Outside, the platform drifts backward until it's gone. The house, the street, her voice, all of it recedes. For a while I just watch the blur of buildings and trees, letting the world move while I stay still. It's strange, the quiet that follows confrontation. Not victory. Not relief. Just space. Space where her voice used to echo inside me. I lean my head against the glass. My reflection stares back, goes thin and flickering. The face looks older than I remember, but steadier. For years I carried her words like weights. Ungrateful, dramatic, difficult. Now they sound like echoes shouted into an empty canyon. They reach me, but they can't touch. The train speeds up, and the city begins to stretch into countryside. Green fields roll by, rain glinting on the glass. Somewhere between stations, I realize I'm not rehearsing arguments anymore. I'm not rewriting what I should have said. That loop has finally stopped. I think about her sitting in that kitchen, the spoon still beside the mug. Maybe she'll replay our talk 100 times. Maybe she won't. Either way, it's no longer mine to carry. Closure isn't about making someone understand. It's about no longer needing them to. A little boy runs down the aisle laughing, a red balloon string clenched in his fist. He trips, steadies himself, keeps going. I smile before I even realize it. That small sound of joy slices through the heaviness like sunlight through curtains. I reach into my bag and find the old photograph I almost threw away last year. The one of me as a child in the backyard holding a dandelion. Mom had taken it. For a moment I wonder what she saw through the lens that day. Maybe a little girl she didn't know how to love. Maybe just a blur of light. I trace the edges of the photo and slide it back into the envelope. I don't need to destroy the past to be free of it. I just need to stop worshipping it. The announcer's voice crackles overhead, naming the next station. My stop. I stand, smoothing my coat, feeling the train begin to slow. Each breath steadier than the last. The floor vibrates beneath my feet. The metal sings with friction. When the doors open, cool air rushes in. I step out. Rain has started to fall, thin, quiet threads stitching the ground together. I walk without hurrying, letting it wash through my hair, my clothes, my thoughts. A woman near the station gate struggles with her umbrella. I hold it steady for her until it catches the wind. She thanks me, and for the first time in a long time I don't deflect the kindness. I just nod. The street ahead glistens. I think about calling someone, not her but a friend, someone real. Maybe I will. Maybe not today. Freedom isn't about running. It's about choosing where to stand still. As I reach the corner, a shop window reflects my face again. This time it doesn't startle me. The reflection belongs to me now. Not the frightened child, not the angry survivor, just the person in between. Someone who finally knows how to look herself in the eye. I whisper almost without sound. It's over. The words don't echo. They settle like dust after a storm. And somewhere deep inside, space opens, quiet, wide, and waiting for whatever comes next. I walked out of her house and didn't look back. Not once. The cold air hit my face, sharp and clear, like the world was finally breathing for me again. For years, every breath had belonged to her. measured by her moods, stolen by her guilt, controlled by her pain. But now, I could finally feel my own heartbeat, and it was steady, strong, mine. The street was quiet, the same cracked pavement I'd once raced across as a kid, when I'd run to the bus stop praying I wouldn't be late, praying I wouldn't make her mad. Now I walk slowly, deliberately, like I owned every second that used to belong to fear. My phone buzzed. Dad's name. I answered with a calm smile. "Hey," I said. He asked if I was okay. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have to lie. "I'm good," I said. "Really good." He laughed quietly, relieved. And I realized something then. The people who truly love you don't ask you to shrink to fit their comfort. They make space for your strength. I drove away with the windows down, wind in my hair, sunlight catching the edges of everything. The kind of light you only see after the storm has passed. As the miles rolled behind me, memories tried to crawl back. The shouting, the guilt, the nights I'd cried into my pillow, whispering promises to a younger version of myself. "One day you'll be free." That promise had taken years, but I'd kept it. Freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't fireworks or victory speeches. It was quiet, solid, a decision that no one would ever own my peace again. When I reached my apartment, I stood at the door a moment before unlocking it. That silence, the kind without tension, felt almost unreal. Inside, sunlight spilled across the floor. A small plant I'd nearly killed months ago was somehow thriving, its green leaves stretching toward the light. I laughed softly. "Yeah, me too." I brewed coffee, the smell wrapping around me like home. No yelling, no blame, just warmth and choice. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. There were college photos saved there. A younger me trying so hard to survive. But now I saw her differently, not as a scared girl, but as the reason I was still standing. Every version of me that had endured her storms was part of this peace, part of this strength. I opened a blank document and began to type. Not an essay, not an apology, just the truth. The truth that healing isn't pretty. That walking away doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you finally cared enough for yourself. And maybe someday someone else, some kid sitting in their room wondering if they're the problem, will hear my story and know they're not. That thought hit me hard. Not sadness, not regret, just purpose. I had spent my whole life being her caretaker, her scapegoat, her emotional punching bag. Now I wanted to use that strength for something better. To build, not just survive. To live, not just exist. I looked out the window. The world was ordinary again. But this time ordinary felt like a miracle. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my sister. A text? "You okay?" I smiled and typed back. "I'm finally free." 3 simple words. But they felt like thunder. Because freedom wasn't just leaving her house. It was leaving behind the version of myself who still needed her to be someone she'd never be. And in that quiet moment I knew. The past had shaped me, but it would never define me. I would. I grabbed my keys again, stepped outside, and this time when I walked, I didn't just walk away. I walked toward something. Something alive. Something bright. Something that finally belonged to me. My life. And I wasn't going to waste a single breath of it.